Hola. Um, what do I want to talk about today? I want to talk about, there's this great article on Huffington Post in the book section by Allison Hill, who is the owner of Vroman's bookstore here in Pasadena, California. It's a great bookstore, and I've been there multiple times. I wouldn't mind working there, actually. It's a great place. I wish I could work there. It's hard to get a job these days. But anyways, it's a great article. Talks about and I've mentioned this before, how the changing dynamics of the book business has it's the same thing. I think what happens in the movie industry, why movie theaters see their revenue dropping, is because I think there's a lot of people who used to go and see trailers just to go see trailers of new movies, especially the big spectacular ones. Like, I saw Iron Man 3, the new trailer that came out the other day, and it's like, a couple years ago, maybe not even, maybe even 10 years ago, you had to really go to the movie theaters and pay the ticket price. Of course, some left, got their money back, and which is why some of the movie theaters really clamped down on that. But, in doing so, I think they chipped away some of their revenue. Same thing is happening in the book business, and I think part of it is exactly that, is that there is no longer, when you go into a bookstore, especially Barnes & Noble, because it's now the only chain left since Borders went under, where you really hard to find someone who knows anything about books. And the article talks about how someone basically is asking for questions about, when basically it is, find me a book that will change my life. And while that's hard, it usually turns out to be, as I have in my 2 decades in working in the book business, is that people have reasons why they choose these titles and why they want books of a certain thing. The article talks about someone who was dying of cancer, and how these people were trying to find a book, and how not necessarily the idea of dying of cancer, but how to sort of distract them from that, and how to live their lives that's coming to an end. And we as a bookseller can tell these people, there's no algorithm on Amazon.com that will tell you that. And we need that interaction. I think people do want an interaction. And as the bookstores get smaller and smaller, well, maybe we had too many, and we have to find a healthy balance between the right bookstore and then, and making sure that we don't have an overglut of it. But I think what we need is to worry more about the employees and what they're helping these customers with, because I think there's a lot of times that people do go into the bookstore and they want help. They want someone to get them beyond the bestseller list. And the more hours that are cut out of it because CEOs and margins have to be met and metrics have to be met, we're losing the ability to communicate to other people, because, oddly enough, of social media. It's supposed to open it up, but I actually think it shrinks it down. So we're losing the ability to tell these people there's something good out there beyond James Patterson, who doesn't ever write his books. And so I want to tell people that there's some great stuff out there. And be it science fiction, mystery, general fiction, even nonfiction, there is some great stuff out there. But I'm mostly concentrated on the fiction. And there's some great stuff out there beyond the stereotypical stuff that's out there. I don't go see a lot of tentpole films. I'll go see Iron Man 3, but if I don't see it, my life's not going to change. I don't need to have people coming up to me and say, "Oh, how could you not see Iron Man 3? I've yet to see Avatar." And I think part of it is just, my desire to want something different. That I don't want to be thrown into one box and say, this is what Dave does. David is this way. I did that for a long time with reading mysteries and science fiction and fantasy, and now as I've gotten older, I like to find out that I like to read a lot of different genres now. And especially fiction. There's a lot of fiction I have missed in the last 30 years. And now I'm trying to make up for it by, like John Irving. I'm trying to go back and read, John Irving, and I got he's got like 14, 15 books, and I've only read about 6 of them. And now I'm in the start of trying to get caught up on them. I can't read them back to back because they're dense and they do follow a basic structure. But I like my Stephen King, and I just got done reading a book called The Rook by a very talented writer named Daniel O'Malley. And he takes a lot of genres. He takes the X-Men, the X-Files, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, James Bond, and sort of throws them together into a often funny novel that I found quite enjoyable. It's not highly original at all, but it's enjoyable, and that's the thing. It's a fun book. And after reading, say, something like John Irving, sometimes you just need a fun book. So I think we need to do is just encourage people to go to the bookstore more. Stop downloading the stuff. I mean, it's all right to download it, I guess, but go to the bookstore once in a while and find out from people what is good to read. Don't rely on the algorithms that Amazon creates to justify purchasing stuff that you really don't want to read. Because there's a lot of crap out there. And there's a lot, James Patterson is a prime example of what crap is. And I know people enjoy reading stuff, but really it's, the paper-thin plots, the prose, the dialogue, it's horrendous. I mean, I like to call it as toilet reading. It's basically, a guy and the girl's going to sit on the toilet for 15 minutes. That's where you read the book. You don't drag it out. Maybe it's great for an airplane ride too, I guess. But still, I still drag something that has a little bit more gratis to it. So that's just me. But there's something else out there. And so I always want to encourage people to read. And like The Rook, I actually got from the library right across the street over here in Laverne. And I hadn't gone to the library because, I guess I got stuffy and egotistical about libraries. I worked on a book business. I can buy books and I have a discount and blah, 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 blah. But I've got probably hundreds of books I haven't read yet. And I've already sold a couple hundred books, books back to something like Iliad's over in North Hollywood, just because I'm never going to read some of this stuff. And so, go figure with that. But I think part of it is just I just want people to understand that what the bookstores give, and you have to understand that, is that we give you a choice. And I think it's an honest choice. And as long as book business, as long as people like Barnes & Noble. Now, Vroman's is a great place because it hires people who are book people. I would say that if you walked into Vroman's here in Pasadena and asked anyone there what you wanted to read, in whatever genre it is, they'll have someone there who is an expert on it. Barnes & Noble doesn't have that. They have people there who happen to be mostly just doing that for part-time work, or they might read a book here and there, but generally, at least in my dealings with employees at Barnes & Noble, most of them, they couldn't tell you what to read. And beyond, of course, what's being pumped to them by their bosses and everything else. And I think the honesty that's being missed there, and we need people to say, you know what? Here, read something beyond James Patterson. Read something beyond Nora Roberts. There is something out there. It's like television. You guys at CBS, this big network that has people, I love The Big Bang Theory, love CSI, NCIS, and all that. But that stuff is derivative. It's not actually very good, and will have very little lasting effect beyond what they are. And maybe that's what people want. Maybe people, when they turn on the boob tube, they want nothing. All they want is, to be entertained for a half hour or an hour. But there's got to be something there, and you've got to be able to feel something after you get done with the book. So when you close a book and you finish it, you should have some feelings after it, and go and think about it. TV, NCIS, 5 minutes after the show ends, can you tell me what the story was about? No. Because it's so plain, it's so dull, and so predictable. And it leaves you with nothing. And I think that's what reading is all about. It leaves you something. Every book leaves a residual effect. And even And I don't think James Patterson does. It doesn't leave you with any feelings either way. It just sort of ends, and then you go, okay, look, where's the next one? And then you read it and go, oh, wait a second, isn't this the same plot, or just the words just rearranged, or the characters basically the same? Yes. And you've got to stop doing that. But, I also can't stop people from, watching crappy reality shows. So, but most I can tell you is just read. And occasionally, if you want to read James Patterson or Nora Roberts or any of those other romance novels or whatever, but occasionally, walk into a bookstore and ask the bookseller to change your life. And guess what? I think they will.